The Falcons do rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, lifelong sports fan, and today I just wanted to give a quick update. We all have known for about a week now as in Falcons Nation that Desmond Ridder was going to be taking over starting duties as quarterback for the next 4 games and likely the foreseeable future for the Falcons, especially if this dress rehearsal turns into an actual really good performance over the next 4 weeks here. Now, I am very hopeful that he can lead us into a possible playoff berth, go 4-0 here in these very winnable last 4 games. But with that said, realistically, it's probably going to be something like 1-3 or 2-2 with some struggles, particularly going on the road to New Orleans with a very tough front four, and then having to go subsequently to the Ravens, who are hurting on offense, but have a pretty stellar defense since the addition of Roquan Smith and already had a fair amount of talent anyway. So it's probably going to be a little bit tough for both of those environments, but I do hope that we can come away with some wins here and string it together. So my bold prediction is that we make the playoffs this year, going 4-0 at the end of the year. But that's just the bold side of it. But the big news of the day is yesterday it was announced that Marcus Mariota will be placed on injured reserve and that he is pretty much stepping away from the team. Not sure what has happened there from a coaching standpoint. I did have a chance to listen to or actually watch the interview or the press conference that Arthur Smith had yesterday, and there were a lot of questions directed at Desmond Ridder's viability and his maturity and how he's grown, but the tone, you're going to get a lot of coach speak from coaches in these press conferences. They don't want to give a lot away. They don't want to throw chum into the waters. But the general tone that I got watching it is that there's a lot of disappointment in Arthur Smith's voice about the way things went down. So ultimately, I initially didn't have a problem with Marcus Mariota, who apparently has been dealing with a chronic knee injury that wasn't limiting him in play, but was maybe nagging him or causing some sort of issue. Have no problem with him going ahead and doing surgery. I would have liked to have seen him be a high-end backup for the next 4 games, but I don't have a problem with that. My big problem with Marcus comes in the fact that he's a guy who's had this reputation of being high quality, high caliber, a team player, and he's stepping away in a situation where a rookie who plays a similar style of football to him, not exactly the same at this point in their careers. I think Ridder has the stronger arm and the more accurate arm, but in terms of running, doing read options, doing RPOs, I think that Ridder is a very similar player, probably not quite as good on the ground as Mariota is, but still a guy who can use his legs and did use his legs in college to escape games. Had a chance to watch him when he played Georgia in I believe it was the Sugar Bowl, might have been the Peach Bowl, but anyway, had a chance to watch him in the 2020 season, or the end of the 2020 season of college after the COVID year. It was a very weird year, and then we had the Alabama when Georgia was looking to possibly make a playoff berth. Definitely watched the other game with Alabama versus Cincinnati, and he used his there. But all that said, I'm disappointed that Mariota is basically saying, I'm done. I'm not going to come back to the team. I'm not going to be at practice. I'm not going to be there to be a veteran presence. A lot of the teams seem to be supporting him in that decision, but as a fan, he's getting paid a ton of money to do a job, and he's not doing that job. He got a $5 million signing bonus, and I apologize for not having this available, but let's look at the Atlanta Falcons salary cap for 2022. I believe altogether he was responsible for somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 or $8 million this year. Let's see if I can find him on here. Yes, actually, he was about $4.25 million cap hit. We already gave him $2.5 million, which is going to be enforced next year. Since we gave him $5 million, that's going to be enforced next year when he is cutting. His base salary was $1.75 million, so he's getting paid $4.25 million to be on the team this year, and he's already been paid a little over $7 million to be a Falcon. That I'm a physician. I make a decent living. It's a good job. It's one that I worked really hard to get to, and I'm paid, more or less above average for what my particular specialty is. It's a good living. I do this for fun. I'm not doing this for the money, because there is none right now. But I just do this because I enjoy it. I would have to work somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 years or more to be able to get the kind of money that Marcus Mariota is getting for 1 year and 14 games of football, not to mention what he has received already as a backup for the last 3 years. Probably, I don't know his salary numbers. I assume it's at least a couple million every year for the last 3 years. Then his initial contract as a second overall pick. I think he was on, I'm trying to remember if he got extended for a 5th-year option at the time or not, but, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $20+ million right there. So he is making a ton of money to play a game. It's a game that we all love. It's one that helps us get aggression out vicariously through our favorite team and watching them play. But he's getting paid a ton of money, a literal ton of money, to play for the Falcons and be there and be a guide, knowing that the type of money he's making this year. He's not making starting quarterback money in the NFL. Even next year, when we were looking at paying him a total of 14 additional million, I think it was 12 or 14 million, he still was not going to be making huge money. He's not making Patrick Mahomes money. He's not making what we all expect Lamar Jackson is going to make this offseason. He's not making even Kyler Murray, who's probably, unfortunately, with that ACL tear, going to miss most of next year with an ACL tear after signing a huge deal. I think his was something like $270 million with like 200 guaranteed or something. It was ridiculous. It was super, super high. But we're not talking about a quarterback with that caliber of talent. We're talking about a guy who is going to be paid, basically $20 million over the course of 2 years to be a starter for an NFL franchise, which equates to being a stopgap. That's not money you pay to somebody that you're planning on being your long-term answer. And again, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. He was brought onto this roster very clearly because Arthur Smith believed in him. Arthur Smith worked with him when he was a Tennessee Titan. He knew Arthur Smith's offense, and he was somebody that could easily play in. Now, he certainly deserves to be a backup quarterback in the NFL, but I think this year has shown that when you give Marcus the reins, he is not the guy who's going to lead you. He's a guy that can play admirably and play well in a limited offense going forward, but he's not a guy that can get you the big play. He's not a guy that can take you to a Super Bowl or can really lead a team to the playoffs when it's all on his shoulders. And that's where I'm disappointed that he's leaving, is that he does have 7 years of NFL wisdom and multiple coaching schemes to pass on to a young, impressionable quarterback, and he's just not taking that opportunity or stepping away from that opportunity altogether. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave it with Marcus Mariota. It is now the Desmond Ridder era, for better or worse. I hope that it's going to be better. As far as injuries go, Wilkinson has returned. We are looking forward to having him at guard again. I think that really helps our offensive line, who have already been good, even with the rotational left guard piece. We've been quite good at running the ball, though we've been a little shaky, kind of middle of the road on pass defense. I think his return helps. Chuma Edoga also has been out. He did miss Wednesday's practice with a knee injury. I don't know that we're going to see him this week. Arnold Ebiketie is practicing. Matt Hennessy has a designation to return, though we don't know if he is going to be back this week. But Ebiketie, the new guy that I am calling AK-47, if you watched my short yesterday, I love that nickname for him. He is starting to turn it up. Out of the top 5 edge rushers taken this year, he is number 4 on the rookies in terms of ability to get pressure on the quarterback. He doesn't lead the league in sacks. He's not leading that number very well overall in sacks, but he has the fewest snaps of any of the top 5 edge rushers, and he has done more with those snaps than a lot of those players. And particularly, he is starting to turn it on. Before he got injured, he's been starting to turn it on in the last few weeks leading up to his injury. I look forward to seeing him. I look forward to him being a foundation foundational piece for us going forward. Jalen Dalton has also returned as a depth piece on the defensive line. Look for Taquan Graham. He's out for probably the remainder of the season, but we'll be glad to have him back next year. I think even with his horrible Chargers double fumble incident, he is still a solid piece for us, but I think he ends up being a backup to whoever we take in free agency. Again, my choice, Deron Payne. Would love to see him on our team. I think he's somebody we could certainly go for. And then, for a guard, I think we still need one more position on the team. Elton Jenkins out of the Packers is somebody that I think we could go for in free agency. But again, we're not talking about free agency today. We're talking about Marcus Mariota, the disappointment that I think we as Falcons fans feel. Again, I'm grateful for Marcus. I'm grateful for what he did for the team. But this definitely, where I would have had admiration and praise for him at the end of the year, to save $14 million next year, I would have still had a great admiration for him. This definitely sours the water. But that's all I got for you today. Definitely big news. It is hate week here for the Falcons. We get to play our hated rivals in the New Orleans Saints. Can't wait for this one. It is going to be a tough game. Last year we won in New Orleans with what I would call a worse roster. This year, I think we are a little bit better going into this game. It is going to be incredibly tough. Let's see if we can get Desmond Ridder to put the first notch under his belt of what I hope is a stellar career in the NFL. Let's go. Hate week. Rise up. Beat the Saints. Let's go, Dirty Birds. As always, guys, thanks for watching, liking, sharing this content. I appreciate any subscriptions that you guys are willing to give me. Thank you for watching. And as always, rise up.